York is set to raise the age of criminal responsibility from 16 to 18. The move would shift nonviolent cases to family court and keep a majority of young offenders out of adult prison. But critics say this does little to discourage crime and adds up to giving criminals a get-out-of-jail-free card. So is it the right move? We're going to ask our legal panel that question. Heather Hansen and Rebecca Rose Woodland are both criminal defense attorneys. They join us for a fair and balanced debate on this. Okay, Heather, I'll start with you. What do you think of this proposal of changing the age of criminality?
It makes perfect sense. New York and North Carolina are the only two states that have 16 as the age. If you're not going to do it for compassionate reasons, because kids' brains aren't fully formed, because they're more likely to be abused in jail, and if you're not going to do it for practical reasons, that kids should be able to talk to their parents when they're arrested as opposed to being treated as adults, you have to do it for financial reasons. If a kid goes to prison, they're 80% more likely to get back into the system and commit more crimes, and then we're just dealing with them in the future. The other problem is that most of these crimes are misdemeanors. If kids have fines that they can't pay, it affects their credit, they can't get jobs, and they're hurting our economy. There's no good reason not to do this.
Well, there might be one. You may have it. What do you say?
There are a couple. First of all, most states now have the age at 17, not 18. And there's an argument that there's a deterrent to having to face adult charges. If you're handling yourself as an adult, if you're acting as an adult, if you're violent, if there are criminal charges, and there, you know, some of the things you call non-rape is a violent crime. And so I know there's a recidivism rate, but there is also as in adult prison. So I don't know that we can just take those statistics out and keep them in a bubble. You know, crime increases and crime recreases and the adult criminals also return to jail. I think we have an issue with the jails.
Well, sure.
We have an issue with the educational system rather than the age. I think we should keep the age younger because there's a deterrent.
Now, is there anything to do here psychologically in terms of reform in the mind, emotionally of a criminal if you do put them in jail at 16, or at least they're subject to adult charges, or if you hold off and that age does move to 18?
It actually moves better in favor of my argument because science shows that kids' brains aren't fully formed until the age of 25. Now, I'm not saying push it back till 25, but what it does show is they're more likely to be rehabilitated in a juvenile system, and if their brains are plastic enough for that to happen, then we should let it happen in the juvenile system.
I mean, I've got a 5-year-old who knows that stealing is wrong.
But sure, Elizabeth,
right.
But we're not talking about stealing. 3/4 of the arrests between 2011 and 2013 in New York City were misdemeanors. We're talking about driving without a license, driving without insurance. We're talking about underage drinking. All of these things that all kinds of kids can get caught up in. And rather than going to an adult prison where they're going to be treated with adults in risk of being abused, we put them in a system that can help them.
But for some of those crimes, they can be moved to a juvenile detention center. That's up to the judge. So there is the ability to move to a juvenile center. But it's for the violent crimes and the felonies that we really have to say, wait a second. Now, if these kids are adult enough to have a gun, if these kids are adult enough to conduct themselves in a manner that is so aggressive and violent, but even Rebecca, if they're getting rehabilitation.
They're not old enough to drink. They're not old enough to vote, but they're going to be.
They're old enough to drive. And, you know, are they being rehabilitated differently in the juvenile system than the adult system? Okay, but then maybe we need to reform the prison system and reform the educational system. But changing the age so dramatically from 16 to 18, I mean, it leaves so many more people
than in New York.
It's going to be happening.
You know, this is the trend here. So they may not be old enough to actually face real jail time.
Some time.
I want to thank you both for a heated debate. Big changes in the Big Apple.